Good afternoon and good evening, everyone out there. Thank you so much for joining this Benchling webinar on how life sciences R&D can upgrade to the cloud. My name is Stella Howard, and I am a marketing manager here at Benchling, coming to you from Oakland, California today. And I will be introducing you to our fantastic speakers we have, as well as helping with Q&A at the end of the webinar. So today we'll be getting advice from these life science and engineering experts on best practices for a successful cloud migration, how to simplify and prep for the process, and understand not only the benefits that arise immediately after the transition, but realizing the longer-term potential that cloud infrastructure can bring to a modern lab. So with that, let's go ahead and meet our speakers today. First off, I'm happy to introduce Nishant Neal, who is a regional lead of professional services here at Benchling, soon to actually move to Zurich and head up the team in Europe, which is really exciting. He has been at Benchling for over 5 years now and focuses on implementations and customer success. And prior to his work here, he actually was a co-founder at a rapid diagnostics device company, which is pretty neat. Nishant will be giving our introduction and moderating today's panel. Hey, Nishant, thanks so much for being here today. How are you? I think you're joining us from San Diego.
Hey, Stella, that's right.
Awesome. And next, I am happy to introduce our guest speaker today here is Ajay Mohindra, who is coming to us from Amazon Web Services, AWS. At AWS, he is a senior partner solutions architect, where his work focuses on helping AWS healthcare and life science companies develop innovative solutions on the cloud. Thanks so much for joining us today. How are you, and where are you working from today, Ajay?
Hi everyone. I'm joining you from New York today.
Awesome, New York. And next, I'd like to introduce Todd Rowe, who is the Associate Director of Research Informatics at Jounce Therapeutics, who has actually been a Benchling client since 2016. Todd has a long history of working in R&D IT, and will be talking to us today about migration strategies after his team at Jounce recently moved 3 legacy systems over to Benchling. Thank you so much for joining us today, Todd. How are you, and where are you working at today?
Thank you, Stella. I'm doing well. I'm joining you from Concord, Massachusetts.
Cool. We got some East Coast folks. I think Casey's over there too, who I'll introduce next. Last but definitely not least, Casey Kraft is joining us today, who is a team lead in professional services and has been with the customer success team at Benchling now for almost 2 years. Prior to her work here, she received a PhD in molecular pharmacology and worked as an academic researcher and faculty member. She'll be speaking on our panel today about her work with 2 clients who recently migrated legacy systems over to the cloud. Hey, Casey, excited to have you here today. How are you, and where are you joining us from?
Hi, Stella, happy to be here. I am calling in from a very, very chilly Boston today.
Oh, nice. It's hot over here in Oakland. So thanks everyone. And lastly, a really quick housekeeping item is with our webinars, we encourage audience engagement. So please feel free to submit Q&A at the bottom of your screen at any time. We'll answer some stuff in the thread, as well as taking some questions live at the very end of the webinar. And so with that, I will hand it off to Nishant.
Thanks, Stella. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So to frame today's discussion, let's start with the notion that it is science that is leading the development of advanced technologies and not the other way around. Companies are facing R&D challenges as the technologies themselves are evolving quickly and market needs change. CRISPR and NGS, to name just a few, weren't around 20 years ago, and each have workflows that are highly complex and iterative. And as we're seeing right now with COVID, companies need to often adapt their processes almost overnight to come to market in record time. R&D organizations can no longer be waiting for quarterly or annual system updates when the science is evolving so quickly. Digital solutions need to adapt and iterate to the science and not the other way around. These digital solutions or life sciences are driven by a rich interplay of technology partners, R&D, and IT. Each can benefit uniquely from cloud technologies and together enable the complex science that needs to take place today. So let's go over to the agenda to hear more about today's topics. In today's webinar, I'll provide an introduction to Benchling and moving to a modern life science cloud. Then we'll hear from Todd about Jounce's recent cloud migration project, followed by Ajay, who will speak about how Amazon Web Services can support life sciences organizations. And then we'll close with a panel discussion and an audience Q&A. So first, Benchling. Benchling was founded in 2012 by a team of scientists and engineers at MIT who were frustrated with the poor quality of software they had available to them to support their science. With over 270 users across the globe today, Benchling is now a widely adopted cloud solution that gives users and management a 360-degree view of R&D innovation. We offer 7 integrated applications in a single interface, and these applications span R&D process from experimental design to in silico biology, sample tracking, and process management. These applications are built on a common platform and configurable data model to support each team's unique requirements, and we'll talk about why this is important in a bit. Our modern cloud infrastructure is hosted on AWS and offers state-of-the-art security and control, and Ajay will be covering that more in his presentation as well. We're fortunate to work with over 400 innovative life science companies, including many of the world's largest enterprises. We're used across ag and food science, industrial biotech, and biopharma. These companies are making great discoveries and innovations, and our team is proud to be able to support them. So here at Benchling, we believe there are 4 core benefits that come to mind for a modern cloud solution. First off, it has to be built for complex science. It has to model the full range of molecules and biologics your science needs while still meeting key IT and business requirements. For example, you need to map the relationship between DNA sequences with how that eventually gets expressed in a cell line, but you also need to make sure that data is connected, lineage is preserved, and there's an audit trail of important changes. Number 2, it needs to adapt to your processes. It has to support the workflows that your team does today, but also support the workflows of tomorrow. The system needs to scale and iterate and evolve over time. And to do this well, both IT and business stakeholders should be able to make key changes in the system without relying on the vendor. So things like codeless configuration, strong product training, and ownership of the system are really, really key. Number 3, it needs to enable data-driven decisions. It has to empower users to make decisions day-to-day to optimize experiments, and also empower managers and executives to understand program resources and uncover bottlenecks. And then lastly, it needs to be easy and intuitive to use. In our personal lives today, we all probably use powerful yet very polished software. So the tools that we use in our professional lives should be no different. Users should be delighted to use software because they want to and not because they're told to. This in turn ensures that your teams stay on top of data standards and compliance requirements. And for those of you in rapidly growing R&D organizations where new hires already have a lot on their plate, the software should be easy to get trained up on. So these core attributes are only part of what makes a modern solution beneficial, but it's important to know that software you use won't operate in a vacuum, as most companies will have a range of other data systems as part of their R&D ecosystem. The Benchling platform is designed to work with your existing ecosystem of hardware, software, and business functions. Data needs to flow freely into and out of Benchling to support key functions like IP filings and IND submissions. Our customers routinely take advantage of data import and export capabilities and that exist throughout the system. But it's also important to connect data directly to critical lab systems. Benchling has a robust set of APIs that facilitate connections to other lab software, and Benchling for Lab Automation provides a framework and out-of-the-box connectors to liquid handling and analytical instrumentation. Our data warehouse can be accessible to move data into your BI environments, and all of this is designed to help our customers design and accelerate their R&D digital transformation. Before moving to a unified cloud system, it's common for stakeholders to weigh both the benefits and challenges of such an initiative. And many of you are probably familiar with the benefits, but Ajay will talk about this in more detail about how AWS thinks about the benefits of cloud transformation. As you're gearing up for such a migration, though, there are a few primary challenges that may already be be top of mind. We think that for each of these challenges, there's also an opportunity for your organization to level up. So the first challenge I want to talk about is change management. Getting organizational buy-in and reducing activation energy for change is critical. Many people in an organization may like the status quo and don't have the time to develop a new one. While their concerns are often valid, we also know that a large digital cloud transformation is actually an opportunity to align on all the business needs. A partner that you work with can help develop a really strong change management strategy with you, one that focuses on an effective communication plan, a focus on quick wins, finding your super users, and most importantly, working with you to showcase to your larger organization as to why this change is needed and why it now. The second challenge is the potential for workflow disruption. You're migrating critical high-use workflows to a new cloud infrastructure for an internal group that may have not done this before. The need to divert staff, both IT, scientists, and others from their usual duties may impact key areas of the business. Here, you have an opportunity to bring best practices into your organization. And again, it's important to find the right partner here who can help bring in turnkey solutions in areas like product configuration and testing, and also provides best practices and project planning and cutover strategy. This could ensure key workflows are minimally disrupted, if at all. And the last challenge may be a perceived risk on security and compliance. Historically, there have been fears that on-prem was much more secure. At this point in the SaaS maturity for products serving life science industry, however, there are a well-established set of controls, infrastructure, and processes followed by quality, compliance, and security teams. All this ensures that products meet and exceed requirements. And in other words, there's a very, very high bar for security and compliance for working in the cloud today. So when moving to the cloud, many companies also want to bring solutions into early and late development so that teams can actually unify the software across research and development. Benchling has recently released Benchling Validated Cloud, which enables teams the GXP needs to use the same Benchling applications, really helping companies to centralize and standardize more use cases into a single solution, and allows a seamless transfer of workflow and data across teams. Validated Cloud is a separate tenant with quarterly release cadence rather than our continuous release to maintain a validated state for all work requiring ongoing compliance. That separate tenant has a full validation package, enabling our customers to validate Benchling for those downstream use cases, which includes IQ and OQ results packages, release impact assessments, and more. So I want to wrap up by talking about how you can leverage partners. It's clear right now that the right technology partners will be an important piece of any migration. And the best partners understand there are key components of your journey that take you to launch and also continues past go live. These partners should have dedicated teams that will support you throughout your journey to help you realize value and a return on your investment. Here at Benchling, we have three key functions across our larger customer experience organization. Professional services is your partner on change management and implementation, and they get you to go live. Customer success and support helps resolve bugs or product questions and ensures meaningful product adoption and value realization. And managed services provides more high-touch post-launch support in configuration and training so you can have an optimal system. Together, these three groups work to ensure long-term success so that you can launch to a modern cloud solution and realize value. And you should think about how your team can leverage these different functions in your migration. So now I'll hand it off to Todd, who will talk through his journey and his team through migrating to Benchling.
Thank you, Nishant. Hi, everyone. As Nishant said, I'm Todd Rowe. I'm the Associate Director of Research Informatics at Jounce Therapeutics. I've been there for about 5 years. And I'd like to share with you our experience with our recent migration to Benchling from our legacy informatics systems. So just quickly about Jounce and who I am. We're an immunotherapy drug discovery company based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And we're focused on discovery and development of novel antibody therapeutics delivered to targeted patient populations based on biomarker analysis. We have 4 development stage programs as well as multiple undisclosed discovery programs. Myself, I am responsible for software systems and data management. I support development and support and training of multiple application systems along with my team for all of research at Jounce. I consider myself to be a data engineer with an interest in practical solutions for our research scientists. So at Jounce, when we looked at our research scientists' activities and the software systems that we use to support them, we saw that we had developed a really complex landscape of software for such a small company. When we started building our informatics systems back in 2014, there really wasn't an all-in-one biologic software package that did everything that Jounce needed. So up until 2018, we had a mixture of self-managed private cloud, vendor-managed cloud-based solutions, and point solutions supported by 2 full-time informatics staff plus multiple technical contractors. We all tried hard to integrate and smooth over the seams, but we kept hitting walls with the software and being unable to do the things that we wanted to do in an efficient and scalable way. So what this meant for our users was often a fragmented user experience, lost time and high frustration, multiple logins, attending lots of training, and a heavy reliance on file sharing and often copy-paste integration. What this meant for informatics staff was lots of time lost to managing individual licenses for software systems, building and maintaining custom integrations, and then troubleshooting all of that glue code to stitch it all together. So by bringing in Benchling, we've greatly simplified the environment and removed much of the technical and administrative support burden, such as upgrades and patching, not to mention license and contract management. We still do leverage some point solutions for specialized purposes, and we have worked with Benchling in the past to implement some of our desired protein sequence annotation features, which gets us a lot closer to what we originally wanted. So now what this means for Jounce is that we have a single source of truth for research. We have real-time or near real-time ELN documentation, and we've greatly reduced the support burden so we can spend more time on value-added activities. So how do we end up with Benchling? We had a very thorough selection process. We first surveyed the commercial biologic software landscape market in 2018 with an eye out for specifically protein engineering capabilities. We sent RFIs out to 9 different vendors with biologics-focused software. 7 of them responded. 4 of them gave us demos, and from which our users were most impressed by Benchling. We saw a huge potential in Benchling to meet the needs of our antibody development teams, while also replacing our patchwork of LIMS and registration systems for the rest of research. So we selected Benchling, who agreed to give us an extensive pilot with about 10 of our research scientists. And then following the pilot, we interviewed those testers about their experience, and we analyzed the pros and cons and proposed making the switch. So these are some of the reasons why we chose Benchling. Things like its simple, time-saving, intuitive interface, the sample and result linking and integrated data warehouse, the enthusiastic and helpful support team. It also helped that we had positive prior experience with the molecular biology tool suite. And IT was very impressed with the turnkey, cloud-first, secure, single-tenant solution that Benchling offered. So a little bit about our project strategy. First of all, we declared some basic universal guiding principles for the project team and for the system overall, including open access to all projects for all of our researchers. That would be mandatory use, so there would be no alternatives purchased or given, and that we'd favor simplicity over complexity wherever possible. Second, we recognized that we needed the help of our end users, so we created a team of both IT staff and a cross-section of research scientists, always looking for our most enthusiastic users. We embraced Benchling's super user concept and empowered them to make design decisions. We thoroughly tested our ideal data model and business workflows, and we were constantly testing them. We often encountered old, outdated business rules and discussed changing them where they no longer made sense for us. We spent a lot of time on data cleanup, and which is obviously a very demanding task that involves skilled data experts who are familiar with the science. And then we practiced the data import into our test system to ensure that we wouldn't encounter any surprises on rollout day. Lastly, we planned the release, phasing the rollout by module, and then by user group where necessary. We socialized the plans frequently. We gave numerous talks and previews at science meetings. We always highlighted the benefits, but we also warned that it would be a lot of work and something that we all had to work through. So we also made lots of announcements on our company intranet. We socialized things at company meetings, and we gave previews of what was to come to prepare people. So we had a ton of awareness going into the rollout and the training. And most importantly, we enticed people to actually attend training with the promise of Benchling t-shirts, which we always advertised. So to expand a little bit more about our rollout strategy, the rollout was done in stages because of the scope and size of the migration, because we were replacing the workhorse systems for all of research for up to 80 users, tens of thousands of biologic samples, and many, many more physical sample containers. So to clarify this for our users and put it into context, we mapped our old systems to the Benchling applications that would replace them, and then phased the release of each to ease people into it. So in phase one, we released the notebook to everyone in research, as that would give people the most return for the least amount of effort and get people used to the system. Benchling engineers worked on importing our historical ELN documents, which were all in PDF format, while the project team was busy setting up users, teams, project spaces, ELN templates. We also expanded the use of the molecular biology tool to more teams across Jounce, and we began to configure and prepare our registry and storage locations. Then in phase two, we released the registry and storage applications for scientists in our protein sciences and early discovery teams, which were the bulk of our users. Benchling and Jounce collaborated on the import of tens of thousands of unique biologics and nearly 100,000 physical sample containers. Now, with actual samples in the system, we were able to release the work request features and configure assay results tables to capture data for some of those groups. This sort of left us in a hybrid state with our early discovery teams in Benchling and our later translational and preclinical teams still spread across both Benchling and our legacy LIMS for a short time. So we leveraged the Benchling API to backfill our LIMS system with new Benchling sourced biologics. Then finally in phase three, we released the registry and for translational sciences teams and our cell line development teams, which were our last remaining groups. We're also able to configure and import the remaining samples largely on our own with only just a little help from Benchling's support where specialized field calculations were needed. And it's also worth noting that this third phase happened and was conducted almost entirely remotely while all of our non-lab staff were forced to work from home. And briefly going into the migration details here, we leveraged our direct access to the source databases to export all of our registry and inventory to files. Then we wrote scripts to help us do this, and then we used visualization and analytics software to help us view and analyze and clean up or amend the data. Then we used the Benchling registry and import UI to map the data to Benchling fields and then import the data in chunks. And along the way, we visualized the data and our progress using software that was tied to both the legacy system and the Benchling SQL data warehouse to confirm the transfer. So how are we today? Well, we've addressed many of our main issues with the legacy systems. Our scientists are very happy with the Benchling platform, especially with the time savings that they realize by having everything in a single place. They're no longer hampered by having a fragmented software environment to navigate. We've also realized near universal search to all discovery program data as well as improved traceability of experiment data, which will obviously help us with future IND filings. While our scientists are happy with their data all being in one place, IT and support is also very happy to have reduced its support burden while staying cost neutral. So that's our story, and I can't stress enough how much help we received from both the Jounce and Benchling team. It was a huge effort, and I'd like to thank all of my colleagues here, and I'd like to thank you for your time and attention.
Thanks, everyone. So today I will be sharing how customers in life sciences industry are leveraging AWS Cloud to innovate. We see three common types of challenges facing our life sciences customers. The first challenge is around managing data. Customers continue to generate large volumes of data that is typically captured in millions of files across multiple formats and is locked in silos within the organization. The second challenge is around access to compute resources. To process large volumes of data, customers need to access thousands of CPUs. The compute capacity itself is typically scattered across multiple environments. The third challenge facing our customers is a process challenge, where the increased need for collaboration in the industry is accelerating. For example, scientists should not have to worry about whether they need to move data to where their applications resides, or moving the application to where the data resides, while still following the regulatory guidance. These challenges typically manifest as IT problems such as underutilized resources, science problems such as being unable to ask new types of questions across diverse data, and business problems of reduced profitability and slower time to market. Organizations around the world are moving to the cloud infrastructure to increase IT agility, nearly unlimited scalability, improve reliability, and lower costs. Moving to the cloud allows customers to innovate faster because they can focus their resources on developing applications that differentiate their core business instead of undifferentiated heavy lifting of managing infrastructure and data centers. With cloud computing, AWS manages and maintains the technology infrastructure in a secure environment, and customers access these resources via internet to develop and run their applications. Customers have selected AWS for years because we have proven ourselves committed to customer success. We believe we stand apart in the market because of 7 factors: highest standards for privacy and data security, service breadth and depth with over 175 services, 14 years of experience with cloud, global footprint across 45 countries, broadest and deepest set of machine learning services, and a partner ecosystem with more than 1,600 independent ISVs. We are also recognized as enterprise leadership by Gartner in the cloud infrastructure as a service area. AWS supports more security standards and compliance certifications than any other offering, including PCI, DSS, HIPAA, HITECH, FedRAMP, European Union Data Protection Directive, and FISMA. We help our customers satisfy these compliance requirements for virtually every regulatory agency around the globe. Here is a selection of our customers who are using AWS Cloud. Starting from the top row, these companies range from large enterprise pharma to small pharma biotechs. Row 3 shows the genomics companies, followed by startups and university, nonprofit, and government institutions. The lab of the future focuses on a data-driven approach, which features some key characteristics. First is aggregated data that can be used for secure collaboration. Second is infrastructure that is elastic and scalable with optimized data lifecycle management. Third is workflows that are optimized via machine learning to reduce capital expenses. And last is automation of repetitive tasks via machine learning to enable researchers to focus on experimentation. Traditional on-premise technology made the lab of the future impossible to realize. Life science customers are approaching the build-out of a data-driven lab environment by using cloud. AWS enables an integrated lab environment to enable lab of the future by providing flexible ingestion and processing of instrument data and metadata, ability to accommodate storage and lifecycle management requirements for diverse data types. Third is use of data analytic tools and machine learning to optimize workflows and perform repetitive tasks. Fourth is around set of services to provide secure access to data and analytics. Maintenance of HIPAA GXP required audit control and compliance, such as GDPR, and ability to facilitate global data sharing with internal and external partners. This chart shows the reference architecture that represents the art of the possible when using AWS services to enable lab of the future. In this architecture, we demonstrate how to use AWS to ingest data from various sources to prevent data silos and maximize value. We also illustrate how to use machine learning to optimize workflows and take redundant tasks off the plate of researchers so they can focus on high value work. Let's dive deeper into each step. The first step is to collect and ingest data. We extract and transform data using tools like AWS Glue and pull on-site files and shares to the cloud for secure backup of experimental data with AWS Storage Gateway and AWS Data Sync. We collect, process, and analyze video and data streams from the lab in real time for workflow optimization with Amazon Kinesis. The second step is around process, store, and catalog data. We build data lakes quickly, simplify and enforce security and access management, and then tag and process data to provide self-service access for researchers and lab personnel using AWS Lake Formation. The final step is to act on data. We leverage Amazon QuickSight and third-party business intelligence tools for data visualization, provide real-time feedback via emails and text messages using Amazon SNS, and utilize AI/ML services to automate workflows and reduce repetitive research tasks by leveraging Amazon SageMaker. More information on this specific reference architecture can be found on the AWS website. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you so much, Ajay, for that great overview of AWS, and Todd for your experience on your project and experience with Benchling. So next up, I'd like to head over to our panel discussion with Casey, Todd, and Ajay, and we'll focus on a few specific topics. Like Stella mentioned earlier, feel free to drop in questions into the chat, and we can also answer those in the Q&A section after the panel. Great. So this is a simple but maybe big question. I'll start with you, Casey. How should groups approach getting ready for a migration?
I agree. This is a big question. So I have two answers. Todd mentioned data cleanup in his presentation. And honestly, I cannot stress how important that step is in the process. So what do we mean by data cleanup? It's a very broad term, of course, because it includes standardizing naming. It includes checking for duplicates. It even includes physically looking in the lab to see if things still exist in the freezers that your spreadsheet says should be there. Now, this is something that can be done, of course, by the scientific leads or the IT team, or even a professional services team like what we have at Benchling. But as Todd alluded to, you should really not underestimate the amount of time that this requires. And for example, one of the projects that Stella mentioned that we recently did involved a migration for a company that had about 3,000 biological entities that they wanted to move from a bunch of disparate spreadsheets into the Benchling registry. And to hand curate that data, our professional services team required more than 20 hours worth of work. But even though that sounds like a daunting amount of time, it's so important because the ultimate goal is you want to build a source of truth. So the more prep work you can do ahead of time, the better the quality of data will be going forward. So I would say that's the first thing, is definitely data cleanup. The second thing actually dovetails off something Nishant mentioned earlier, and that would be having a strategy for change management in place. And Todd outlined what they did at Jounce. And I would just say that after you invest all of the time and energy and data curation and migration, you really have to think about adoption, because you want people to like what you've built and you want people to use it. And so to drive that adoption, what we always recommend is that you have someone on site. Todd mentioned the super user idea. So we definitely recommend that you have someone in-house whose function is to serve as a champion for the new data structure and own the training process.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I know that echoes a lot what Todd talked about on how you kind of get ready and find slices of the business in the right way. Todd, anything else that you would add on this topic?
Yeah, all those points are great, Casey. But I think for us, it was because we were trying to broadly affect so much of research. I know that's a big task. And so starting with really clear goals and expectations was really key for us. That also includes getting buy-in from the people who are going to sort of motivate the scientists to actually adopt the system, and in our case, help us test and design the system. So part of that was having a really good data model to fall back on and to use as a touchstone. Whenever questions or issues arose, we could point to it and say, no, this is what we agreed to strategically years ago when we had clearer minds. So let's stick to that. I would also echo just taking the time to clean and prune the data and clean your inventory, especially cleaning house, starting fresh. We drew a line in the sand and said, this is going to move, and anything behind this line is not going to move. So don't just move things for completeness sake. Make good decisions about that. Don't overextend. Pick the projects or the pieces that you want to replace. And, Benchling nicely allows you to kind of compartmentalize or think about the applications in a more compartmentalized way. And just don't underestimate the work that's involved. Even for our small size company, it still took several months of effort. Part of that was we were very engaged, and we had a good engaged client base because we socialized the idea a lot, and we didn't make it seem like it was an IT idea. It was really something that was going to help them, and it was also being promoted by scientific senior management. So those are some of the main things I would say you need to think about before you migrate and during the migration.
Great. Thanks, Todd. I think what I'm hearing from both of you is it's really a team effort, and really important to put the kind of thoughtfulness and intention even before you kind of look at the start of the project. So great. Let's move on to our next topic then. And it is somewhat related, but this is really about now you're ready to go. How do you actually execute? And so maybe for either Todd or Casey, and also Ajay, if there are thoughts here. But question is, who are the key people or roles that you need to pull in to execute a transition successfully. And kind of on top of that, especially in this world we live in today, how did you do this remote? What are some tips you might give your peers on how to do this in a remote world?
Yeah, I can start with that. So, key people involved, key roles, obviously having top level, director level, and manager level scientific buy-in was key. Engaging with our IT folks early, because there will be little technicalities, in integrating systems and working on somebody else's, cloud. Having technical people who are familiar with the old system and who were enthusiastic about using the new system was also key. So we looked particularly for scientists who had been around for a while, but we also brought in some fresh eyes, people who didn't really have any biases. And they often had very insightful things and helped you get out of like your rut of thinking sometimes that comes with years of legacy practice. Having key lab inventory staff, people who knew the physical spaces and layouts of the labs, what was in the freezer stocks, how things are banked, how cell lines are banked, how proteins are purified. That was all really, really crucial. For the remote work, half of the project was done again under work from home conditions for most of Jounce. So we were lucky that we had rolled out part of Benchling before COVID-19 lockdown. So that won't happen, who knows when that'll happen again. But for us, we already had integrated technology like Microsoft Teams and Zoom. So that helped quite a bit. In our Teams channels, and you can use Slack as well, we had set up specific channels for each of the user groups and each of the modules, and we had individual threads of conversation going during the design phase and during the testing and the import to align with our super users and keep them informed. When you use like task tracking software like Jira, a lot of people use some kind of task tracking or Trello, whatever it is. But having the good face-to-face, in the absence of having a good face-to-face meeting environment, just having a regular cadence to the meetings with super users and with end users, so that you just don't lose touch, you don't disappear for weeks, you stay in their mind share. That was really important, especially when moving to fully remote.
Yeah. And I'm sure maybe the scientists had a little bit more time as well to focus on the implementation if they were also remote, right?
Absolutely.
Great. Casey, what about you? What do you typically see as the successful roles and ways to execute in your projects?
So I think ostensibly when you're thinking about this kind of migration, you're hearing buzzwords like data set and databases and things, and it looks like it falls into an IT sort of activity. And as Todd mentioned, it really is critical to have both a strong IT presence and a strong scientific voice as well. We routinely run across issues with clients where you have multiple teams that are using the same tools in the laboratory, even something as simple as a plasmid. And when you have a whole bunch of teams that are using the same reagents, having someone involved in the process who can kind of look at a high level and say, okay, here are how these teams interact, here are the intersection points. Pardon me. And here is the metadata that we have to capture to make them all happy. That really, without that global view of how things are going from a scientific perspective, you really run the risk of not getting good adoption. And on a very sort of the final thing I would say about that person, they have to be pretty enthusiastic about the solution, because you need to have someone who's really prepared to get the value buy-in from the scientific teams.
Great. Thanks, Casey. So I think we can go to our last topic here before we move to Q&A. And this one is around kind of the future visions for R&D. So I'll, for any three of you, feel free to jump in first. But after the transition is completed, what benefits are immediately seen, and what typically can organizations do now that they weren't able to do before?
Yeah, I can speak quickly for Jounce. I mean, the benefits were immediate. ELNs, for example, a lot of times write-ups lagged the experiments by several days, maybe weeks in rare cases, but now we have more active users in the system every day, and so things are being done in more real time. So that was really huge. Other smaller points, like during the registry import, the system actually flagged invalid data for us and identified duplicates and things like that. So, and any holes in our data as well. So it was easy to make those changes. But just the main thing is just having all of that research data now in one place, one platform. It was consistent. It was, the training is a lot simpler, not having to bounce around, as I mentioned, the copy paste integration. It really adds up. All those little things really add up to just being more intuitive, more efficient, and it allows people to stop to think more about their experiments and less about the tools that they have to work with or are forced to work with.
I would just jump on something also that Todd said, the idea of having all of the data in one place really makes your ability to query the data for, let's say, building dashboards. In the case of Benchling, we have our Insights in-platform SQL tool. And by having all of that data across all labs, sites, even continents, you can get a better overall view of lab activities. So for things like if you wanted to get metrics on turnaround time for a particular assay, you can get that data from all across the globe because all the data is in one place. And where we've recently seen this as a very critical component is with clients we're working with who are managing COVID tests. So when they're tracking the COVID testing process through the testing workflow end to end, by being able to have all of that data centralized, they're able to dashboard about throughput and capacity for planning for future testing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then Ajay, I think some of this dovetails well with your Lab of the Future as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so from AWS perspective, I think one of the key benefits that our life sciences customers see is, and this is in addition to the agility and cost savings, is that they are able to do much faster innovation. For example, some of the companies are, once the data is all available on AWS, their scientists can use it for whatever purpose they need, for machine learning, data analytics, or even high performance computing. Whereas other life sciences customers are using the data that's available in a single location for searching through to find new types of insights once it's in the cloud.
Great. All right. So I think that covers our topics we wanted for the panel discussion. So why don't we move over to the audience Q&A, and thank you for everyone who's already sent us some questions. So I think there was one question that came in first that I can quickly answer on the notebook imports. And so I think Chetan had asked, does Benchling, essentially, how does Benchling handle automated migration of notebook entries from other systems? So Benchling has kind of a services offering where we'll work with you to kind of import that data into our system. because the data coming out of another system may kind of be varied depending on the version number and the actual vendor. It's not all out of the box, but generally we do have a pretty kind of operationalized way to do that. So we work with our customers to figure out, how you might extract that, and then how Benchling can help kind of analyze, clean up, and then import that data. And I think more importantly, how to do that in the right way with implementations where you need to figure out the cutover strategy and so on.
Thanks, Ashant. The next one we can ask for Todd. So Todd, this comes from Mike. Relative to getting approval for purchases, did you encounter more resistance from scientists not wanting to change the applications or learn a new one, or did you get more resistance from finance or from IT? And any advice on how to deal with that resistance would probably be good.
Yeah, we actually didn't get very much resistance from any of those groups. If anything, it was more of a challenge just to to move away from systems that we had sort of sentimental attachments to, if I might say. It's things that we thought, oh, we can't ever do without that system or without that system. But doing the pilot program or the pilot study with Benchling gave us clear answers and allowed us to realize that yes, we can change things and still and maybe work the same way or better. So and then following the pilot program, putting together feedback and a clear list of the pros and cons helped us get finance approval and senior management approval. So and because we had been with so many legacy systems and there was a high degree of frustration with some of those systems, it was actually pretty easy to convince the scientists that a change was a good thing.
Excellent. Another quick question for you, Todd, is from Brian McNatt. You mentioned you were using lab automation, and do you have any solutions to automate the data capture and transformation prior to importing it or to the ELN or entry via lab automation object? For example, are you using AWS Glue or Informatica?
Yeah, we are working with an integration partner to integrate with the Benchling lab automation pieces, the run result structure that Benchling introduced, specifically to update ELN pages for routine assay data. But we're not using AWS Glue or Informatica for those solutions. But we also do some internal data preparation kind of things that we develop through pipeline and scripting software for more manual import into ELN entries.
Okay, excellent. This follow-up question is sort of related to Brian's. I'll ask Casey or Nishan if you can answer this one from Venkat. Is related to Brian's question, how does Benchling work with automated labs or with a number of different vendors?
So our lab automation tools within Benchling allow you to, from within a notebook entry, generate the run sheet required to, let's say, interact with a liquid handler, and then parse the data that's coming back off of the liquid handler just by bringing that file in, and then Benchling will parse that incoming data. So because that's how we handle that, Venkat, if I'm understanding your question correctly, we are a little bit vendor agnostic there. In that the bigger question, if we're depending on the type of equipment that we are looking to work with, the bigger question is just what's the format of the run sheet that's required, what's the format of the CSV file that would be needed to pass back and forth to the robot. So we can definitely support a lab that has a variety of automation equipment. I hope that answers your question.
Awesome. We have time for a couple more questions. This one is from Bill Good. Nishan, I think you can take this one. As remote work continues, can you share what your plans are for supporting teams progressing therapeutic programs in Benchling, specifically on how to capture and memorialize data reviews and decisions made at key milestones?
Yeah, good question, Bill. So maybe part of this will relate to the validated cloud offering, and some of it also is related to some of our larger product kind of vision and where it's going. I think when it comes to the validated cloud offering part of it, we are working on kind of improvements to kind of insights and ability to kind of track the tech transfer between research and development. And then in addition to that, our team is making significant updates to our process management tools to help with identifying kind of the things you mentioned, identifying milestones, key decision points, and so on.
All right, great. Another one that came in, Casey, I'll give this one to you, is have you ever seen a migration done at a smaller company that doesn't require a dedicated IT person or dedicated IT team?
Absolutely. We see this all the time. Benchling works with quite a few very small clients where you're just starting to get off the ground, just a couple people, but you want to make that migration. And so there, I would say that we can either, the professional services team is there to help in that process. So we can provide training about how to do that migration on your own, or we also can have a hand in doing that. So it's definitely not something that you should be afraid of trying just because you're too small to, at this point, to, let's say, have a dedicated IT team.
Awesome, great answer. So I think with that, we'll have to wrap things up. I just wanted to quickly share that with any new viewers out there who may be interested in getting a demo from Benchling right away, you can just go to benchling.com/request-demo. If there's any current customers who have joined us, which I know that there have been, if you have any immediate questions you want followed up with, just reach out to your customer success manager. And to help with follow-up, I will just quickly launch a poll if you would like more information from Benchling after the webinar. So I'll give you guys a few seconds to answer that. And while we are going through that poll, I just wanted to say thank you so much for our speakers today, Ajay, Casey, Nishant, and most definitely Todd for joining us today. I hope everybody learned something new about Benchling and how to upgrade legacy systems to the cloud. And please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions to me directly. We would love your feedback on the webinar. There will be a short survey that pops up just after the webinar ends. And everyone who participates in the 2-minute survey will be entered in for a $50 Amazon gift card. So with that, I thank everyone so much, and I hope you guys all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.